All right, welcome everybody to the first episode of the Abundance Podcast. So, in this podcast, we talk about success by interviewing successful people. So, here with us today, we have my dear friend David Yeo. So, David is a very successful trader. He went all the way from being a normal guy working at a pharmacy as a pharmacist to managing over $15 million and being the manager of two different hedge funds. So, what's up, David? How are you, man?
Yeah, Alex. Honored to be on your first hot episode. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, why don't you start by telling a little bit about your journey and what you're doing right now?
Sure. I live in the Bay Area in California. I have a wife and a 7-year-old son. Well, he just turned 8 last weekend. So yeah, I have 8-year old, and um, I retired from pharmacy, healthcare, end of 2021, and decided to launch a hedge fund. And you know year into it, I'm just continuing, to grow that business, and along
Hmm.
with a couple of my other business that I started while I was practicing healthcare.
Nice. So, can you tell us a little bit about like how you began trading? When did you first get exposed to the trading world, and how did you come from being a pharmacist to a hedge fund manager?
Sure. I got into trading about 2008, 2007, 2008-ish. I had a roommate that traded option. He did, a bunch of spreads, and he was an international student. And but the interesting thing was he would trade and he would pay his tuition off every semester by trading. So that kind of got me intrigued, and I didn't, I was working two jobs back then. This is around 2007, 2008, so I was the minimum wage was quite low, and I was in New York at the time. So what I did was kind of dabble into trading just stocks, and at the same time just learning about options through him, and just kind of dabble with it and played with what he was doing and building upon that over the next 10 years or so, and learning from various people, learning from their mistakes. And I actually was able to kind of come up with my down payment for my first house in 2011, eventually, once the market kind of recovered. So that was sort of helpful in terms of building my initial sort of net worth.
So, in 2011, you paid for your first house with the money you made trading.
No, the down payment.
The
Again,
down
there was a
payment. Okay, yeah.
yeah, yeah. If I had more money, obviously it would be a better situation, right? But yeah, I had enough to come up with a down payment in 2011, and during the time was good because the market, real estate market, was just recovering, and so I was able to kind of be comfortably getting a nice property in the Bay Area, and I sold that property in 2018, um, and there was a lot of reason for that. But it was nice because that property, the capital from that property, I was able to kind of use to take advantage of the COVID crash.
Mm,
Yep, yep.
yeah. So, through all your career as a pharmacist, you were trading.
hmm Correct. Yep. I would
Hmm.
dabble, between, especially before 2014, before I seriously got uh, sort of taking investment more seriously, and that's around the time when my wife would got pregnant. And prior to that, I was just working, as a pharmacist, working extra shift, or thinking I'm going to be doing this for 30 years, right? And I it was nice because I would trade and I would be able to buy like an extra gaming laptop or something. Yeah, I would go to work and come back and play games or whatever. That was kind of like the life before I had kids. So, but once my kid was born, that was sort of like my event horizon. That was when I realized like I need to do things differently. Um, Social Security is going to run out, and all that. It's a different world that my kid's going to grow up in, and the math and the cost of living in the Bay Area is just hard to have a family unless you have sustainable and scalable income.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I kind of foresaw like some of the inflation because I went through that sort of inflation the runaway inflation period in Asia back in 97, 98. So I saw what inflation could do to a country. So, and then,
Mhm.
and I gone through, I moved to America in 1999 and went through the dot-com crash. And then after that, the financial crisis. So I've gone through a lot of these crises. Um, so I knew to always kind of look out and hedge my risk. And 2018, I sold my house because I sort of felt like the real estate was getting a little overheated as well. So I decided to sell my property because California is not exactly the best place to keep your property and rent it out. So I'd rather just exit, just rent, and then invest my gains into cash flowing businesses,
Mhm.
property on for trading.
Right. So, in like you said, your event horizon, like when you had kids and you realized that you had to start making more money. So, how did you change the way you were trading? Like, did you quit your job to take trading more seriously, or did you like what happened?
No, no, I just traded strategies a lot more resilient, and I learned a lot from a lot of people who had 20-year trading experience,
Mm-hmm.
and I was able to complement my income. So I traded around again more seriously around 2015 to all the way to today. And I continue to scale that um, account,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. So you talk about being like seeing all of these financial crisis like the 2000 bubble, the 2008 crash, and the hyperinflation in Asia. So, what are your thoughts on the current economic climate, on the inflation, on the banking crisis, and so on?
Well, I can't say we're not in trouble. I mean, the national debt is obviously a concern. GDP is not exactly amazing either, right? Um, in terms of the inflation, I think there's a reason why the Fed is so aggressively raising rates, right? In the last year, I mean, I don't think anyone expected a, such an aggressive rate hike in the last year and a half. But I think the Fed's doing what they can, and they understand I
Especially on
think
the bank.
exactly, like they understand like how important it is to get that under control. I mean, it's either what have jobs and can't afford anything, or have high employment and at least have like price stability. So I think it's a really tricky. It's a really crappy job that the Fed is
Mhm.
having to deal with. But that is what happens, I guess, when we print so much money, right? Such a short period of time. I think I'm surprised it's not worse. I guess the inflation, but I think it will be hard to bring it down to the targeted 2%. That's
Yeah,
my
well,
thought.
you said you're surprised it's not worse, but a thing to consider is that they changed the way that they calculate like the global inflation. Before this kind of inflation wave, the way that they calculated inflation was different, and so it made it look worse. And so now the inflation is like uh, this month I think it was like 5%. Um, but the way that they calculated before, it would be more. So
Of
that's a
course.
thing to take into consideration.
Oh yeah, that's massive data manipulation. There's no,
Mm.
you know,
Yeah. So and then when you look at the price of eggs, of milk, like the inflation is way more than 5%.
yeah. I mean, just think about it, right? When I first moved to this country, it was on gas was only less than $1 a gallon. Now it's at where I live, it's $5.
Mm.
So in what 23 years, it's gone up, 4 5 times. It's for me, and that's eye opening, right? And but then wages has not even gone up that much in
Hmm.
that time period. Minimum wage is not even double in most areas, most places. So
Right.
um, yeah, you are right. A lot of the data definitely is manipulated, like beef prices, and they certainly feel free to exclude whatever category they want to, not be in in those CPIs and report. But
Yep.
yeah, there's nothing you can do really about it, right? It's just you just have to continue to invest and build your income stream
Yeah, of
Um,
course, because a lot of successful fund managers and a lot of successful entrepreneurs started during after a crash, right? So after the dot-com bubble or after 2008. So it might be, if the worst is has already happened, it would be it's one of the greatest time to start, a fund or a business or whatever. Well, maybe not a business, but as an investor. Um, but now, what are your thoughts now on the banking crisis and the Silicon Valley crash? Do you think that all of this is over, or do you think the worst is yet to come?
I don't think it's over. I think there's a lot of things that are still, I wouldn't say getting covered up, but I think it's being um, pushed out, I guess, lack of a better word, or deferred as long as they can. I don't believe that SVB is unique to their practices. I mean, if we exclude the Dodd-Frank compliance banks, I think there a lot of the real estate, commercial real estates are actually being funded by a lot of these smaller regional banks. And I feel like a lot of these smaller regional banks are more concentrated in their portfolio of lending portfolio in certain asset class that may so we may see may expose them to high risk of if we ever have a more serious recession or downturn. And it definitely was a surprise what SVB was doing, and I think that itself was unique. I wouldn't say that no other bank are doing it. So definitely raises the concern of, that's why I think Jenny Yellen was getting asked, like, the are you willing to backstop every institution, a banking institution, right? And that was the big question, and sort of riled up the market a little bit, because everyone is concerned that this SVB thing is not unique. Because if you think about it, right, Credit Suisse, what happened to them? In, Signature Bank, like over the 2 week period, all that happened. It makes you wonder, okay, when's the next domino, right?
Yeah.
How healthy is Deutsche Bank?
Hmm. Yeah.
I think, yeah, I mean, there are so many banks that's kind of like been on the brink of like collapse, or
And also, like, some people have like some more wrong belief that Silicon Valley Bank collapsed because of well, the way they handled the bonds, and because they had a big loss of, I think it was $4 billion. But yes, it was like the cause, but really why they collapsed is because they had a bank run. And no bank in America at all, even the biggest banks, nobody can survive a bank run, because like they're so over leveraged. There's different data, but it ranges between what I've heard, like 3% to all the way to 10% of the actual fund that they have to hold. So if you put in like $1 million, they only have to keep 100,000. So all of the banks are really vulnerable to any panic event.
yes,
So, and Silicon Valley Bank would have survived their 4 billion loss
yeah,
in their bonds investments if it wasn't for the bank run and the panic.
yeah, and it's not just the bank, it's not just the bond investment, right? It's also the product they had, where they lend out to or give these liquidity to the startup based on how much investment they're raising or whatnot. It's sort of like unique to SVB, and that's sort of what got them into trouble, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
The fact that they were in that situation is because they lended to a lot of small companies, and these small companies, in terms like this, when interest rates go up and we're basically almost in a recession, they
yeah,
need cash, they need cash flow. So they went to withdraw their funds, and yeah.
yeah. I think SVB is unique in its own, in that it grew so fast. It's like money come fast, money leave fast, right? So they're a victim of their own success, and
And so, yeah, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I feel like I was reading also, they didn't have a good compliance department as
Yeah,
well.
well, they didn't have a chief
Head of
risk
compliance.
officer
Yes,
for like 6 months before the crash.
yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what are your thoughts on the current situation with the petrodollar and with the US dollar losing its, well, that might be looking in the near future or middle near future to lose its status as the world reserve currency.
Yeah, I mean that happens when the US and using its most, I would say the US dollar is probably the most priced asset that the US exports. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah,
Right?
makes sense. Well, I mean,
It's the
yeah,
product that we use to sanction and bully. It's a lack of a better word, right? To
it's
other
the best
other
product ever made.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So they're continue to will continue to leverage that, but at the same time, it's would you blame other country from banding together to fight against the bully?
No, and the thing also is, the US is not the first to like be in this situation. So we can look at the past to look at how it has unfolded in the past to kind of get an idea of where the US is headed, right? Because it's a pattern that repeats itself. The countries, the world dominating country has the world reserve currency, the world order, so that then they start printing a lot of money, getting in debt, and then they start losing gradually their status as the world order, and then people start seeing that the demand of the for the dollar start decreasing, and but they keep printing money because now the
Yeah,
value of the
because
dollar is.
it's a vicious cycle. Once you print, you can never really get out of that, right?
Yeah, and like I mean there's no situation that I can think of that the US dollar will say something like, all right, we're in too much debt, we'll start earning more than we spend. Like they're in too deep in that debt to
Well,
start doing this.
exactly. Like the politicians have two choices, right? Either increase taxes like crazy, cut spending, or inflate it away, right?
And it's
So
gonna be a
either
third
that,
option in my opinion.
a war.
Or they can default, but I don't even know how would that work and what would be the impact.
Well, you're gonna have runaway inflation, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's almost a guaranteed because no one wants you if you're essentially worthless at that point when you default.
Hmm.
Yeah, so this whole de-dollarization has been happening for quite a while now, so it isn't new. And I feel like if you read Dalio had that book like a couple of years, 3 years ago, Changing World Order. That book was and I believe there was another book called The Great Devaluation. I mean, those are good book to kind of read to get into why
Yeah, it's a
some of
great
the
book.
why like some countries are going back to the gold reserve. But at the same time, you really have to think about how strong the US dollar is entrenched into the financial system, right? You really need a good alternative to replace the US dollar. And so far there just isn't a good alternative yet.
Yeah, so right now where the world is headed is more towards the Chinese yuan, and we can see it as with the well, France did a trade of liquefied natural gas with China in Chinese yuan, and Saudi Arabia did a kind of a demand and is considering entering the BRICS country, the BRICS agreement. Brazil and China now have agreements to trade their goods in Chinese yuan. Russia would be definitely in their best interest to have the Chinese yuan as the world reserve currency and not the USD for obvious reasons. And all of the countries in the Middle East has been getting a lot of military aid by the Chinese government. And the military aid that the US has been giving these countries has been slowly decreasing. And we can see that in Afghanistan. We can see that in the fact that in Iran, the U.S. troops suffered 78 Iranian attacks, and they only responded 3 times. So they're starting not only to lose power but to lose respect. And then the Chinese government, it's all the opposite. They're starting to gain power and respect in these countries. And even though these countries might not be the best and most influential countries for technologies and so on, they're the most influential countries for oil production. And whether we like it or not, that's like the biggest deal.
Yeah, so I guess the question really comes down to how many countries or nation is going to are going to sort of trust, right? Money is about trust at the end of the day.
Yeah, because money is nothing.
Yeah, right. But at the same time, the idea of money is literally, doing it's like this doing business is about trust. And when you're transacting, so how many nations are going to trust the yuan, right? A currency that's owned by a dictator or a party that controls that has so much power over it, right? So I guess it really comes down to how comfortable the world is using currency. Sort of like, in the crypto world, right? You got, these cryptocurrency that has is controlled by a founder, and overnight he can say, we're gonna upgrade it to another token, or we're gonna fork into another token, right? Versus maybe something like Bitcoin where there's no founder, no not less prone to manipulation and by a figurehead, I would say. So, America, I guess, yeah, it really is come down to trust of like how how many how many nations are going to trust the U.S. government versus where the faith of
Hmm.
these nations lies. So we're going to see a lot of changes coming up, and
Right.
I think our country needs to make the right move, you know,
A
and
what?
like all the right moves going forward because we've made all the wrong moves to get us to this point.
Since when?
So since
Because
the
I'd say
'90s,
since like 2008.
I would say since the '90s, since the
The
Gulf,
90s,
probably
yeah?
since all the wars and all the Middle East and the Gulf Wars and all that.
Right. So I guess now the real question is, how do we prepare ourselves against all of these possible threat, and how do you prepare yourself, if you don't mind sharing, in your hedge funds, because you have two hedge funds, and in your personal trading and investing.
I personally like to invest in trading strategies that are more delta neutral, that makes has the ability to capture yield in any market condition in terms of trading. But my personal investment wise, I I like buying. I believe in buying assets that are cash flowing, good businesses that you can adjust pricing of your product to inflation. That will help you adjust to runaway inflation or whatnot, rather than holding cash, which gets devalued. Real estates are good, right? Real estate's always been good for these kind of situations.
Right. Uh, so by buying good cash flowing companies, do you mean private equity company, like, or in the public market?
It could be that. It could be stocks. It could be private businesses, small businesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially right now in the market. I truly believe that in the current state of um, I guess the generational mindset is a lot of baby boomers are retiring, and they have businesses, but their children, millennials, don't really want to take over. So there's a flood of supply and businesses for sale, but there are not as many buyers. And yeah, this is sort of what I'm doing right now. I mean, in 2018, I kind of stopped buying real estate as much because I started seeing the same behavior as 2007, when everyone had a property, everyone's going into seminar, everyone's a guru, right? And so a bunch of e-course starts coming up, and these are sort of like the red flag. I don't like being in red ocean, so I like looking at where the opportunity or where everyone else not looking, and that's what I'm seeing right now. You can buy a business for let's just say $250,000, but that business will actually generate $250,000 revenue, and you will be the net maybe 100, 150, and that's you can get a 50, 60, 70% um, return on your money if you buy correctly. Just like real estate, you have to buy correctly, obviously, right? So,
So, are
and,
you thinking of maybe starting a private equity firm on
um,
top of your hedge funds?
I actually have a team that actually runs my business arm. So I have a small business arm where I purchase I run the bootstrap. I own a bagel shop currently, and I've grown that into a um, second business, which a vending business that I may consider It's a vending machine business basically, and I've considered turning that into a fund in the future. Yeah.
So the fun
So
would be only with vending machines.
correct. Yep. So I'm building that to scale. I'm scaling that to a point where it comfortably, you know, could give a preferred return to investors and still operate and grow at the same time. So
What kind of IRR are you targeting with the vending machines?
you could comfortably give north of 10 pref and still have a split
80
on
20
top of
split?
that. You can still do an 80-20 split on top of that. And, profit margin is about 60% within that business. So
And in terms of like total IRR, like before giving the money
I
to
haven't
investors,
I haven't really done the calculations, but I would say like 15 to 20 easily.
15 to 20. Nice.
Easily. Yeah. Um, they really obviously it depends on the cost of goods and labor costs, but
Hmm.
it's a very scalable business because you're scaling machines with with a $3,000 machine that lasts 5 years versus every time you bring in $10,000 more in business, you have to hire an employee, which costs you $4,000 to $5,000 for payroll every month. So it's a lot more scalable by
Yeah.
scaling one machine, that generates. Yeah,
And I think it's a very attractive product and like business model for new entrepreneurs because it seems really easy to start, right? It's not like
it is
building
easy to start,
an application. It's just right, you buy vending machines, you place it, and then you collect the cash flow. So
right?
is it easy? What are the pros and what is the ick? Like what is the cons?
You have to do the work up front, and this is one of those generation things I talked about. It's a lot of younger kids, they prefer to use technology, right? Everyone's getting to the whole I can work from home, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, I look at where everyone's not willing to do the work or what they're not what they're leaving off the table. So that's just where I feel like if you're willing to do the work up front, you start getting the location for these vending machines is the toughest part. Cold calling, going to businesses, making the connection, the networking events, with business owners and getting to in front of the right people. That's where the challenge is. And you could easily go in to the business and have 1 to 5 machines by yourself. But to scale to 100, 500 machine, it requires a certain sort of, operational design and, you operate. Yeah. So to grow that, you need some sort of system in place to consistently have outreach and scale. So
Right.
that's where a lot of these I guess the millennial generation isn't as competitive because it comes down to one, they have to buy the business, they have to negotiate, and then they have, even if they want to, I mean, the truth is most kids nowadays, they want to work for a tech company, right? In the last 10 years, it's you got the campus life. You get to work from home. You get to work, bring your dog to work. It's nice. You got your laundry taken care of. I don't know what else, what other perks they have, right? Really amazing food. It's a good glamorous life, right? It's a comfortable life. So I don't blame them for wanting that over the headaches of up and down of being an entrepreneur. So, but that leaves again, the buyer side on the business purchase is less competitive because you have less bid.
So I guess
So
it's a really nice time to have capital to acquire businesses.
yes, yes, compared to 10 years ago, definitely,
Hmm.
definitely, especially now that there's a lot more attention in real estate. Everyone wants to get in real estate, right? But nobody really wants to put in the work and go in business, and you just have to
Yeah,
pick the
that's
right.
that's 100% true. Everybody wants to get into real estate, but like nobody seems to actually do the work to get started.
Right, exactly. So it's opportunity too. So real estate, you have to have the know-how and the right connection, right? Brokers only want to work with you if you can close.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yes,
So you mentioned that your vending. Oops. Sorry. So you mentioned that your vending machine business is scalable. However, clearly a hedge fund is more scalable, right? So
definitely.
are you thinking of scaling your hedge funds to bigger numbers, or do you think that like 15 millions AUM is kind of
Oh,
your sweet spot?
no, I mean, 50 million is just 1 year of work, right? So, no, I love the hedge fund business. I think it's the most scalable business out there,
Yeah, it
and
is.
it's worldwide. I can trade anywhere in the world from anywhere in the world. I that is my full time, you know, I would say focus right now. I've left my job, and the hedge fund is my full time. The business side, I let my team handle that. I don't work in any other business.
You're
My,
an
my
I in the quadrant, right? You're an investor in the other venture.
I'm more like the board of director.
Okay.
I'm more like a one man board of director. I basically, have once a week meeting with them, a few hours, and that's it. We talk about the most important problems, where we're going from here. We iron out any issues, any marketing plan, um, any opportunities, and I'm always looking to grow my business arm. So I'm always shopping for new businesses to purchase and to add to that
Hmm.
portfolio. Yeah, it's sort of what I'm passionate at, and but I don't want to grow too fast, so I bootstrap everything. So I don't leverage, I don't borrow money to do it. Everything is self-funded by the existing operations. So sometimes I don't, I find a lot of businesses, they grow too fast, they crash and burn, or they can't do everything correct. I like the idea of digging deep and did it at first, get your foundation right.
Yeah, and
Yep,
it's the right
and
way to
then
do it because, like you mentioned, it's kind of the worst thing for a business to have an exponential like overgrowth, to
yep,
grow too fast. Like statistically, that's the worst thing for business. Like it's kind of
yes.
counterintuitive, but it is true. Um,
Yeah, so I
so
don't.
yeah, go
I
ahead.
like businesses that are recession proof, and I like businesses. I'm very picky. So obviously, I'm not just buying any business because I like you can make good money in buying a day spa or a massage parlor, right? But you have to scale with labor, which is it's a problem. It's hard to find in certain areas, especially in the Bay Area, and the cost of wages going to go up, have to go up to adjust to inflation, and that's going to put a lot of stress on the margin. So you have to be really selective for what business you get into as well. You can't just say, "Oh yeah, basically get in any business," right? And some business have high demand, but can you provide enough labor or technology to provide good service to make it a good? Owning business is one thing, but you also want to make them good, turn them into good businesses.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, recession-proof business. That's why you're in the food business, right? Because it's
Correct.
recession-proof. You have a big old shop, vending machines, and
Well, the vending machine was sort of a, a a transition that makes sense because I have snacks and drinks in the vending in the bagel shop, and they would expire and they would drive me nuts because
I
they were
thought you were
adding.
gonna say at home.
Yeah, no, they would actually shrink, and I would like I can't eat chips. I can eat all the expired chips, right? So I was like thinking, how do I get better distribution for these so I'd have less shrink? And it was
Mhm.
just a normal trend, a natural transition. And I'm like, wow, this is a really good business to actually do. So that's when I started formulating a plan to get into that. And yeah,
Interesting. So for your hedge funds, what are your goals in terms of raising money?
just continue making, good connections with investors, new investors, and basically sharing what I do. And I have a good product, and I truly believe in the strategies. And I every business has the right clients. You just have to find them,
Hmm.
and I'm taking it one day at a time, and I'm not trying to grow it aggressively. I mean, I love what I do. I like trading and growing businesses is my passion. I'm probably one of those crazy people that would never fully retire, but
Mm.
you have to be crazy because crazy is,
Right.
you're seeing what other people don't see. So,
Yeah, and that kind of people like don't make the best employees sometime.
oh, I'm a terrible employee.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
were you a
yeah.
terrible pharmacist?
No, I was good. I would say like decent, decent manager.
Oh,
Yeah,
you were a manager, like
I
pharmacist
was
manager.
correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I have some success, and obviously my challenges with you know people as well who are,
Hmm.
I mean, it's entrepreneur and don't. generally don't make great employees
Yeah,
because we have
yeah.
we have too many ideas, too many changes we want to make too fast. So that's sort of why I left the corporate world, right? Because you just want changes and impact, big impact quicker, and with being control your own time, I can do that a lot better.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Um, so what are your plans and what are you currently doing like for giving back? Because you're obviously very successful. Like, do you have plans to kind of give back to society in one way or another?
Yeah, I mean, I want to be first and foremost a role model to my son. Right? I want to show him hard work ethic, and I want to show him, what um, you can do by investing in yourself, by
Yeah,
learning continuously and taking on challenges and making impact in the world. So I do want to make the world obviously sustainable for his generation. So I do have, a desire to invest in um, nonprofit, especially nonprofit, because I feel like nonprofit nowadays is spending way too much time trying to raise capital instead of doing what they're good at. And but at the same time, I want to, I'm very picky on what kind of nonprofit that I get involved with because I don't necessarily believe in some of the mission, some of the nonprofit, especially some of them are more political. So I would definitely avoid anything like that. And I would probably more towards saving the ocean or, more like the planet sort of things, just um, because that's where I feel like the world is not focusing enough on.
yeah. Well, you have to pick your cause because there's just
Yes.
too many of them.
Yeah, I mean, starting with the ocean is definitely the start. I mean, life comes out of the ocean. So you can't keep throwing plastics and
Yeah.
polluting the ocean and expect the world to be healthy.
So, have you ever thought about linking your fund to a charity? Because that's something that I've thought about, but I wouldn't know exactly how the logistic would work. Because yeah, I know that GK has done it. He kind of, GK is in or Black Card group. He has
Right.
kind of linked his fund to a charity, well, his own charity, and so his fund, like some of the profit of the GP goes to the nonprofit organization, and that's something I would really like to do, not only for me because I want to give back, but also it's obviously going to be a good point for raising capital. So have you ever thought about it, and do you have any like insights on how would that work? Because I'm not sure.
Um, I've obviously it's definitely crossed my mind. Again, I can't really compare to the success GK has, right? He's
Yeah, well,
managing billions, so
he was
it's a
already
lot.
a billionaire when he started his hedge fund, so it's easier for him to raise capital.
Correct. So, he's in a different league and obviously has the luxury to doing that, right? For me, I'm still at the growing phase. So I'm definitely more focused on taking care of my team and my family to start first. And then, I don't go into the fun world constantly like raising money as my intent. So that's sort of very sales or very agenda focused. I genuinely go into every meeting and every event making new friends because a lot of my friends are in the W2 world. And I find, when I have struggle in my businesses, I really don't have anybody to talk to for a period.
Mm,
And then when I have success, I can't tell them or celebrate with them because it sounds like you're bragging.
yeah.
Because their life is show up and make money, right? My life has become up and down. So for me, I go to every event, I go to I have every encounter. I generally go in as hey, this person has the same mindset or goes through the same thing as me. They understand me
Hmm.
on my challenges as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a fund manager. So that connection means more to me. And then I go into an event trying to raise money. I've never found success doing that. I really just making friends first, and if there is a connection to be partners, right? If I feel like this person is a good fit, then if they're interested in what I'm doing, I'm happy to share. If it's the right fit, then we take them on. I take them on as an investor. Again, investor is a partner to me. It's not just somebody, a client or customer.
Yeah. Have you
Yeah,
ever read the book Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff?
yes, 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 yes. That's a
That kind
good
of relates to what you're saying.
It does, yeah. And, but they have a lot of good things in that too, pitching from a different uh angles or whatnot, right? They have a lot of good pitching tips and
Yeah.
advice. And yeah,
It's
that's an
more than
amazing
tips.
book.
It's like pitching a mindset.
Yes, yes, exactly. Again, for me, it's more I just enjoy the process. Again, I do this because I enjoy. I'm working way more hours than I was working with
I
when I
mean,
had a W-2.
that's kind of me too, right? I'm working way more hours than I would be if I just had a normal job. And especially with a fun, right? Like a fun is not like a normal business. I mean, all of business requires a lot of work, but a fun is kind of it's in the big leagues.
Yeah, I mean, in order for you to grow, various arm of your business. Like I have a partner in real estate. He takes care of all the real estate, operations, and I have a business team that takes care of a lot of the business. But you have to trust people. You have to find the right people to put in your circle, in your life, and these are the people who are going to take care of your family when you're gone. So you really have to build that connection, that understanding, and that team that has the same vision and mission, uh, for the long run. So it's really important that you don't
Yeah.
just get anyone in your life, even if it's great for money. Money, it's not a scarce asset. People, good people are.
Yeah. And it's kind of a catchy phrase. Your net worth is your net worth.
Yes,
But
yes.
and a lot of people agree with this. They're like, yeah, of course, your network is your network, but they don't really kind of apply it to their own life. But like this phrase for me is really, really important because my number one priority is always to network. Um,
Mhm.
like I don't care if I spend like 1,000 or 2,000 or even more on a networking events, even if I get nothing out of it. Because
You
what
always get something out of it.
Well, yeah, sometimes you don't though, but you always get something out of it, or at least you practice networking, right? But yeah, because like you said, money is gonna come to you when you have a big network, and I think it's by far the most important thing.
Yeah, and if you really look at how money goes to people in life, the honest way, right? They attract money. They focus on either their own skill or something that they're doing to improve themselves or their business or their assets that attracts capital. It's sort of like if you chase something, you generally won't get it. But if you focus on, like just like an athlete, right? If you focus on your skills, eventually you will get good enough and you just get paid more, right? In business, the same thing, you develop a good product and you keep improving on that. The market will tell you, hey, this is valuable, and they'll pay you more. So investing in yourself is one of the best things you can do, especially in a changing world like us, like the one we have now, in terms of technology, political, right, and finding good, driven partners that have the same, you know, mindset is really key to success.
Yeah, I agree, and I think having good partners is a key aspect. And I met a lot of people that are thinking of starting a fund and or a business, and like the only advice that I can give them is, yeah, definitely finding good partners, because some of them are trying to do it all by themselves. They're saying kind of, yeah, I don't think I need a partner, la la. But I mean, I like the saying that says, would you rather have like a big piece out of a small pie or a small piece out of a big pie? And it's so true. And then there's always like when you're three working on the same project, it's like there's something real that's coming together. There's like synergies and everything. So I think having partners is not only like a no-brainer, it's a necessity. And like some people like don't really want partners or think they can do it all by themselves. But for me, at least, if I can talk for me, having a partner has been really great for my hedge fund.
It's good. Yeah, I mean, I believe some people probably had bad experience with bad partners. I mean, they do exist,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah, definitely. You have to do good background checks.
Yeah, not just background check, right? I mean, people say they're going to do a lot of things, but then they don't deliver.
Mm.
So I've had my share experience with that.
Oh yeah,
Sometimes you put your best foot forward and they don't always pan out. So yeah, I mean, continue to find people that align with your interests and your goals. It's key, and they actually
mhm.
need to people need to deliver. Just because you have a small piece of a big pie, sometimes make sure that big pie is operating at a you know
That the the big pie is shared with the right people.
yeah, exactly, and it's growing, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've heard some terrible stories about untrustworthy and partners. So that's a good point to always do good background checks and to make sure that you're with the right partner. To have a dating phase before you engage into a business with somebody, right?
It's marriage,
Yeah, exactly. It's a marriage, and so date before you marry the person.
right?
So now we can talk a little bit about trading because I know a lot of people in my kind of circle are traders, so they might be listening to this and wondering how to grow their trading, or some people even how to start their trading. So if somebody were a new trader, what would be your recommendations in terms of what asset classes to trade and like everything?
I would say it really depends if they're I don't trade stocks anymore. I'm strictly in the option market. And if you get into that, make sure you understand you know your Greeks. Make sure you understand how volatile option can get. And my advice to new trader is trade small. Trade often. When trade a system, a strategy that's like you can it's repeatable. And when you win more than you lose, or more often, and when you lose small, right? Focus on being consistent, practice, learn from other people's you know mistake, and understand why those things happen, so you can avoid it, big setbacks, and learn to control the mental, emotional um, side of trading. Don't get into revenge trading. Don't take outsized risk just because you're trying to come back from a the emotion can really throw your game off.
Yeah.
It Yep.
So yeah,
So those are
emotion. Yeah, go ahead.
basically like good, I guess, tips for beginners.
Yeah, emotions are definitely a big part of it, and especially beginners and people that are not in a space don't really understand that. But controlling your emotions, and not just your emotions, but your mentality and how you see your trading, like your perspective on what is trading, that's a big part of success. And I guess you read the book Trading in the Zone.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so that, at least for me, and I know for many traders, has been kind of a really important book that you must read like more than once. And it talks about how you must understand the probabilities of trading and
Your risk
really
reward.
yeah, go ahead.
Your risk reward.
Yeah, your risk to reward ratio, and to really handle it like a not a business, of course, like a business, but like a casino. Like if you're playing blackjack and then the odds over the long term were against you, why would you like add the blackjack game to your casino, right? You must make sure that the blackjack game, the odds are with you. So it's kind of the same thing. And this understanding what is trading and the purpose of it all is a big part of being successful. But then also, of course, you have to actually find a edge. And finding an edge can actually, I think, be kind of challenging because there's a lot of, in my opinion at least, um, content on the internet that are teaching you to learn how to trade just to make money by selling you a course, but then the course doesn't
Yeah.
actually have an edge. A edge meaning a statistical advantage, a competitive advantage, whatever you want to call it. So that can be a really a awful trap for new traders, right? You can buy courses, and then that course, yeah, they sell you the course, but there's not really any value in it.
Exactly. So it's really important for beginners to not just follow trades, but actually understand why these trades have been conducted, right? It's just like crypto a year, like 2 years ago. Everyone was in the Discord group, right? So they're kind of like real estate and any investing. There's like these Discord group or Facebook group, whatever, and there's always somebody selling you something. If they're truly good at what they do, why do they need to sell a course? I always
Mm.
question that.
Yeah.
Is that right? Why do you need to? Why do you need this income stream? I mean, yeah, I guess it's great to have an additional income stream, but the course is a lot of work. I have no desire to be in, you know,
Yeah.
any,
Yeah,
you know,
and that's a good point, right? Because now what you said is true that if you're making a lot of money, why would you start selling course? But then I think there's a distinction to made between like trading course and like trading gurus and like trading communities. Because of
mhm.
course, at the end of the day, you're gonna learn trading by following a community or some kind of knowledge
Yeah, I
source.
mean, yeah, I
So
get that, right? If you have a trading system that works and you don't want to give it away for free, it's entrepreneur. It totally makes sense to charge it. And courses are such scalable programs, but just buyer beware, I guess.
yeah, buyer beware. And because yeah, for me, I never bought an online course before like the one I'm in right now. And I actually didn't buy it. I'm with my partner on it, but whatever. But the community that I'm in right now of the training option community is really really good. And so that there's it's full of engineers, mathematician, like lawyers.
Smart
Like
people,
they're all professionals and they're
really
yeah,
smart people.
pharmacists. And it's like a really amazing community that you can learn so much from. And it's not like a course. There's a course, but the value is in like every week people meet together and then people share their strategies from A to Z, and it's all in the same not mindset, but in the same frame. Like all the strategies are basically more or less the same principle, right? Being net short out of the money, brokering butterflies, with a hedging structure.
Right.
So
It sounds like these community. The difference is they are constantly improving,
yeah, yeah, they're
right?
alive.
Exactly. The strategy or looking at different angles versus selling, hey, this is the way to do it. You
Yeah,
just got to do this. Follow what
like
follow, right? I
yeah.
think that's where, but I think the people who are thinking about going into trading needs to kind of be able to distinguish
Mm,
between,
yeah.
hey, this community is trying to improve the existing like system versus this is telling me to do this and it should work or whatnot, right?
Yeah, it's like
Nothing,
pay five
yeah,
hundred dollars to learn how to trade a double top.
right. I mean, nothing in life works forever, right? Everything works until it doesn't. Relationship, marriages, trading, investments, businesses, right? Everything gets disrupted at some point. So, so it's always better to be in a community where they're constantly improving and adapting.
Hmm. Yeah, and yeah, so not just a course but a community. Yeah, like you can adapt to, like you said, the changing well, the changing market environment, but also the changing world order, in my opinion, that's coming in the in the next decade or two.
Yeah, and the last piece of advice for new trader is if it costs you your peace, this is not the right investment field for you. And
I mean, I might disagree with that because I'm younger, so if it cost me my piece, or if I was talking to somebody who wanted to start trading, I would actually say to them, it is going to cost you your piece for the next 2 or 3 years, but it's gonna be worth it.
yeah, but I don't think it's healthy to, if you're losing sleep over your trades or whatever, right? I don't think, I mean, there are other ways to make money without, putting yourself up to that kind of mental suffering.
Yeah, well,
Hey,
I mean, yeah, during the trades, yeah, but I mean, I mean, like, you're gonna work so hard that you're gonna lose like your piece, and you're gonna lose the mindset of just saying, yeah, I'm gonna go out on Saturday and have a drink. You're gonna be, no, I have to learn a new trading system, and I'll have to learn how put skew work.
right. I mean, if they're passionate, definitely pursue
Hmm.
it, right? So, But if you're miserable in it, I would say consider there are other ways
I
to make
mean, like
money.
everything, yeah.
Correct. It's not for everyone.